and we were all excited to watch like the introductory thing of how to use everything. And then all of a sudden, your dad is on the screen. I'm like, wait a minute, that's Mr. Westbrook. So I think that brought up another time for my mom to tell that story that she always loves to tell. All right, so welcome back to the Maley Way. I'm your host, Jim Maley. Today's guest, yes, I said guest, we got a husband and a wife joining us on Zoom, Anna and John Nadasdy. Was that correct?
Pretty good.
Okay, good. I will say before I continue going, I practiced saying that multiple times. I looked on your LinkedIn page multiple times. I never get nervous, but for some reason I was nervous about getting that wrong. So I'm glad I did. I nail it or no?
I think you nailed
It's
it.
it's pretty good. I mean,
Okay.
I've heard it completely butchered. That
Okay.
is totally fine.
All right, good. So we're going to be talking about two topics that I haven't really gone that deep into yet. One being loss, the other being about substance misuse, and more important, how those things are connected to things like depression, mental health, and maybe how athletics kind of plays a role into that. Before we start, though, I need to share something. John, you might not have heard this. I talked about this on my podcast with my wife the other day. But John, if you're not a loyal listener, no pressure. I know you will be,
Oh yeah.
but I would not be here if it weren't for Anna's father, Mr. Westbrook. My mom.
I just heard the story this weekend.
Uh, yeah, my mom loved telling the story. I don't know if Anna remembers, but my mom was like a chatterbox, like nonstop, was talking to everyone. We were at the Western Springs pool, and I was like 3 years old. My mom had lost sight of me. I think because she was talking, and I went into the deep end. And Mr. Westbrook, as my mom says it, and my mom always says she's an Irish woman, so she never lets the truth get in the way of a good story. But I believe this to be true. He just like dove in, got me out of there. And like my mom said, like it would have been in trouble because the lifeguards didn't see me, nobody saw me. And he kind of saved my life. And I don't mean to sound corny here, but I think that kind of applies to this conversation. And I guess this is more metaphorically speaking, but sometimes you're going under. You're going into the deep end and you need someone or many people to kind of help you out. And I was lucky I had Mr. Westbrook in my own life battling mental health. I had my wife, my mother, my dad. And I think you all had each other from what it sounds like. So that's kind of what I want to get into. And with that, I want to welcome both Anna and John to the Maley Way.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Jim.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah. I
Yeah,
love that
yeah,
story though. It's really sweet. And it well, I'm sure we'll get into it, but we lost my dad,
yeah.
like 26 years ago. So I love hearing memories that people have of him.
Yeah, oh, I have another one. Well, this is when this story would have been brought up all the time just because I was playing with your brother. But one time your dad was an actor, right?
He was, yeah.
So we bought a town and country minivan and we were all excited to watch like the introductory thing of how to use everything. And then all of a sudden your dad is on the screen. I'm like, wait a minute, that's Mr. Westbrook. So I think that brought up another time for my mom to tell that story that she always loves to tell. But yeah, I did want to start with that because I think from what I understand, I know you and I know John lost, people really close to them. You lost your dad at 22 years of age. And it reminds me, my wife lost her dad around the same time. I remember going, if it was right on Wolf Road, right at the church, right on Wolf Road, if I
Yep, the
remember.
Presbyterian Church, yeah.
Yeah, I remember going there, and I just remember that was like the first person and that I knew that had died at a young age.
Hmm.
Obviously, you were at an age, you were an adult, fresh out of college. How did that affect you during that time?
Yeah, I mean, he had been sick. He was only sick about 18 months,
Hmm.
and he was only 49 years old and otherwise really healthy.
Yeah.
So he ultimately died of head and neck cancer. And it was hard because I didn't also, I also didn't really have a whole lot of experience with death at that point. All four of my grandparents were still alive. All of my friends' parents were still alive. And so it was really new to me. I shouldn't say all of my friends' parents. I did have one friend in college whose dad also passed like while we were in college from cancer. And I remember just, he and I definitely became closer because you have someone that just understands what you're going through. And so
Hmm.
I think that is an easy connector for those people that, go through that. But it was hard. I mean, there's a sense of just numbness, I think, when you go through something like that. And, at age 22, your friends are still going out all the time and getting together. It's a really social time. And I just remember kind of like going through the motions almost, because if you don't participate, people are really
Yeah.
worried about you and,
Yeah.
but you don't really feel like doing anything. And then after about a year, the plan was always for me to move out west. And so I did after a year because my brother was still in high school and my mom was obviously grieving. We did do some grief counseling as a family that I think
Hmm.
was really helpful just to kind of identify. um it's interesting, like I remember the grief counselor talking about how often the surviving parent becomes
Hmm.
kind of like it's hard on the surviving parent with the kids because the parent that has passed almost becomes, you know, what's the word I'm looking for? Like a saint of
Yeah,
some sort, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
untouchable, you know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and then the surviving parent has to deal with the fallout from that and is almost a scapegoat in some ways. And I do remember that, being the case. So
Yeah.
um so it was good to kind of address some of those feelings
Yeah.
up front. But
Now, did you have like I know my wife had a hard time. Her dad had a heart attack at 52, and he was in great shape, all that type of stuff, kind of like your dad. And think the thing that she had a hard time with was like other people, like her friends. And it wasn't that her friends didn't care. It was, and she's really close with all of her friends. It wasn't that they didn't care, but they just had never gone through something like that. So she
yeah.
felt like, maybe they didn't necessarily kind of understand exactly and that goes for me too. Like I didn't understand it at the time. But have you felt like that? And I think you kind of mentioned it, but like, has that given you a better understanding of like, and more helpful when other people that are going through it?
Oh yeah. I mean, and looking back, I think you don't I didn't fault any of my friends for not knowing or not understanding like how to step up because no one had been through that. But I do think if you have been there, it does make it easier to relate to others who are going through the same thing.
Yeah.
And I mean, death is hard. You never, even if you've been through it, everyone deals with it a little bit differently, and there's no one right way. But I definitely feel I'm pretty comfortable at this point, kind of
Yeah.
sitting in that space with people, as opposed to a 22-year-old who's never been through that, knowing how to support a friend.
Yeah. No. And I think, yeah, I know that my wife has gone through that. And like now that I lost my mom, obviously I was like 35, so I was a lot older. But yeah, you get a different sense of how to like talk to people about that. It's not a club you want to be a part of in any way,
Right.
but you can, I think, be helpful to other people because you have gone through that. And I know obviously, I don't know I'm thinking back to my wife, like some milestones were pretty hard for her. Like even just
Hmm.
watching her friends' fathers walk them down the aisle. Like she struggled. Like sometimes she would have to leave during that part, or like even when it was our wedding, same thing, or when we had our kids. I know she thinks about that. She thinks about it a lot at those like specific milestones. You kind of reflect back during different milestone events in your life?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Especially because we were just laughing the other night. I mean, we have a 12-year-old daughter and she is um I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if she goes into some sort of, show business or
Mhm.
acting herself because she really does love performing arts. But I just think so frequently like how much my dad would have just loved, would have gotten such a kick out of her and would have loved seeing her grow up. So it's definitely the milestones are hard. The weddings were hard,
Mhm.
but
Yeah.
it does get easier. I mean, time really does have a way of smoothing things out.
Yeah, I feel like you kind of, at least from my perspective, is it went from sadness to like then things would remind me of my mother, and it would almost make me happy. Or telling the story about your dad made me happy thinking about my mom, like
Yeah.
continually telling it, maybe a little bit different every single time, and that kind of makes me. It's a good thing, but you don't really get that right away. That kind of comes with time, as you
Yeah.
said. Now, John, I know you experienced loss much younger. At what age did you lose your mother?
I did. My mother passed away shortly before my fifth birthday,
Okay.
so it's pretty young, right?
Yeah.
I don't have a lot of real concrete memories of her.
Uh,
Um, so it was obviously a very different situation than what Anna had. I was raised by my father.
yeah.
I have a brother and sister who are 5 years older than I am, and they're able to string together a lot more memories. Like they've got a concrete memory of my mother, and with me, it's really very piecemeal.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, it was really strange. Like we're at that point, like I didn't really understand grieving. I didn't really even know what was going on. I was 4 years old,
Yeah.
and the things that would really get me down are like when you're a little kid and you're in, second grade or third grade and you're making a Mother's Day present
Yeah.
in school, like that was you don't think about that, but now you look back and like, God, that was really pretty sad.
Yeah.
I'd always like go to the library when the class was doing that, and
Yeah.
it was kind of it was just kind of a different upbringing, but I never really grieved. I didn't really quite understand what had happened. And as
Yeah.
time went on, you just kind of get used to it, right? And it's
Yeah.
just the way it is, and it's a different thing, and it did end up coming and hitting me at a much later in life, probably for some other reasons too. But
Yeah.
um, yeah,
Now
it's unfortunate, but that's kind of the situation I was in.
was that something like I think when what was it in like the mid 70s when it
Yeah,
happened?
76
So that
was
was obviously like also a different time too. I'm guessing there
very
wasn't a
different
whole
time.
lot of like, counseling. It was probably like put your head down and just grind forward at the time, pretty much.
Yeah, I mean, pretty much. My father um, is an immigrant from Hungary. So, yeah, I mean, he came to Hungary when he was 16,
Hmm.
and he was very driven. I mean, he's a very kind, great guy, but keeps to himself, doesn't express a lot of emotion, and just puts his head down and works, right? And
Yeah.
that's the scenario that I was in at home, right? So it wasn't really talked about a lot. My sister, if anybody, would bring it up sometimes, but she dealt with some issues herself, not too long after that. She ended up with some eating disorders and anorexia. So, it, we all dealt with it in a different way, but there was definitely no counseling going on or anything like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, I mean, I think it kind of too, what I've noticed is like different cultures, and even when I think of like like Irish Catholic family, and you always think of like the drinking, and there is problematic drinking in, cousins and family members and things like that. But I think a lot of it has to do with like the mental health side, where that's what, we end up turning to because, we are always taught like, hey, be stubborn, put your head down, just grind through it. And, when we were experiencing mental health issues, which kind of runs in our family, it was just like, I'm just gonna fight through this. And then I think the drinking started coming involved with a lot of different people in our family. I think, would you classify like the culture that you grew up in as contributor to, maybe not necessarily addressing certain things?
Um, yeah, I would think for maybe not addressing things. I certainly did not come from a drinking family, though.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
my father might be a lot of things, but he's never been a drinker.
Yeah. Okay.
So, yeah, but it just wasn't really talked about, you know?
Yeah.
It wasn't, there was no shame in it. It wasn't considered, bad to talk about it, but it just wasn't ever brought up, And
Yeah.
if I did bring it up, it was kind of addressed quickly, right?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. No, I can imagine.
And also, just I mean, and I love John's family so much. And I've definitely just out of total curiosity, have probably his dad's probably felt like I'm grilling him, but I think his childhood in Hungary was so interesting. It was during war. It was, I mean, his family fled because of the, Hungarian Revolution. So there was a lot of trauma in his childhood too, that you just kind of, again, put your head down and work hard, and you just don't really dwell on it.
Yeah.
And he's not, I think he's been really generous over the years with like patiently answering all of my questions.
Yeah.
But and it's not something that he shies away from now, but I definitely feel like it was like baked into the culture of the family, just kind of like, move forward.
Yeah. And it's almost like too, like, I guess if you're comparing like I used to do that too, like where I would maybe compare my situation to, like when my first thing with depression started, I was at Northwestern. I had three buddies from Croatia who grew up in like that war torn environment. And I'm thinking to myself, like, Jesus, like I grew up in Western Springs, Illinois. Like, what do I have to be like depressed about? And sometimes I think especially when you're thinking of mental health, it doesn't necessarily help to compare when you're struggling. I think it helps to compare when you're doing well as a form of like gratitude, but like when you're struggling with something, comparison, that doesn't really help you. At least that's what I've found. Um, Now I want to go on to like your athletic experience, because I think that kind of shapes a lot of people. I know it shaped me. And I want you to talk about like your athletic experience. I know you were an athlete, track, you went to Purdue and did track there. Like, how did that kind of shape you?
Yeah, I mean, I loved sports so much growing up, to the point where, and most people, track is one of those sports that most people are running for punishment, in the sports that they're in. But I just found, um, you know, I just loved the competitiveness, to the point where I was like seeking out, other teams to run with during the summers, found some great club teams. But yeah, so great experience in high school, had some success, was offered an athletic scholarship to Purdue, couldn't turn down a D1, Big
Yeah.
Ten scholarship, as you know. But then I got there and it was just such a different environment. I mean, most of the girls on my team, maybe not most, a significant amount of girls on my team had eating disorders, lots of depression, lots of anxiety, and it was really a low point for me, but it was also like as I'm comparing myself, right, to those around me, I'm like, well, at least I'm not, you know, not suffering in some of the same ways. But I did eventually find relief getting out of the sport altogether. And it really did leave a bad taste in my mouth. It's funny because a few years ago, as I was kind of like not loving where I was in my career, I started seeking out ways to kind of reintroduce joy. And I don't think I mentioned this to you, Jim, but I remembered back to like high school track and how much I loved it. And so I actually volunteer coach at the high school, our local high school, their track
Oh,
team, and it's been so much fun. I love it.
yeah.
Um, to the point
Oh,
where, yeah, I've been inspired to maybe run some masters track meets this summer. So,
oh,
but it's
that is
yeah,
awesome.
it's been such a long time that my body is protesting.
Now, okay, so when you got out, like I know you said you didn't deal with any of those things yourself, but like do you think did you like maybe envision yourself like if you would have stuck with it, like uh-oh, like maybe I will, get involved in like depression or eating issues and things like that? Or was that like a motivating factor to get out?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there were plenty of, I mean, I had never like cried so much at like practice and me, like I was not an emotional athlete, and yet I was just, there were some days when it was hard to get out of bed just because I was so miserable. Like I knew I had made this commitment and had to do this thing, and it was really making my life miserable. And so yeah, it was such a relief to me to finally hang it up. And there was a part of me that felt like a failure because I hadn't kind of like seen this through, but it was such a weight off my shoulders that that was kind of like overcome. But what's interesting now, and especially with a daughter that's involved with sports, is that that isn't necessarily like a unique situation, particularly among women athletes playing college sports. There's a lot of kind of worse outcomes within mental health, kind of that realm, than you see in the general student population. And so that was really eye-opening to me when, just kind of recently, I feel like we've got enough data to look at that and figure out that, like, hey, maybe we shouldn't be pushing our kids into playing college, but if they can have a great experience, athletic experience, maybe that's, kind of the pinnacle.
Yeah.
And not
No.
to say that there can't be more after that, but I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's kind of one of the things that I talk about a lot and talk about with parents and my own kids. Like, I think we need to get back to sports being about like the values you can gain from them as opposed to like the division ones, like it's an anomaly. Like that is an
Right.
anomaly. And we are like putting a lot of pressure on these kids to get there. And I mean, to your point, and kind of to my point, once you get there, it's not that fun a lot of times. I mean, it
Yeah.
is a job. At least now some of them are getting paid a little bit more. But
Right.
yeah, I mean, I think we need to get like use sports to focus on those different aspects more, like learning how to fail. Like I'm a big fan of like letting our kids fail as opposed to like yelling at them from the sidelines. Like I almost want them to fail because I think that's something that you get from sports that you don't always get from other things, especially, where we grow up, where things are usually pretty good. You
Yeah.
need that adversity. Um, so you kind of got out of the sport, and like, how did that, when you got out, like, was it just like, I know you said a weight off your shoulders. Was it just everything good from that point forward then?
I mean, I kind of like found my people in college and ended up, I mean, ended up having a good college experience. I stayed at Purdue. My parents were um, they were very I guess, supportive, but also wanted me to finish, finish and get my degree. And um, so yeah, so it's, I was reflecting back though, like that was probably my least physically active 3 years was like after I quit track, I
Yeah.
had not really found, I mean, I'd play some rec sports here and there. I think we were like flag football champions with Drew Brees as a coach, but
Oh, there you go.
yeah. But yeah, but otherwise, didn't it was my sloth years. But yeah, but otherwise, I mean, I love sports. I think it is so important for mental health. And I kind of saw that, just even in recent years when I found my way back to it, right?
Yeah.
Um, so
No, that's awesome. And then like, so John, I know you went to BC. Sorry, John, this kind of pains me as a Holy Cross guy. We kind of have like a little, we're like the redheaded stepchild of BC.
You're
They're
like the little
very,
brother.
yeah, they're very similar, but we are smaller. But it's like almost the same. It's the same type of place. Like I've been to BC a bunch,
Yeah.
and it just reminds me of Holy Cross. And I know you did crew there. Did you do that all 4 years there?
I did. I quit about halfway through my senior year.
Okay.
Um, but it was not at the time, it was pretty early for Boston College crew, so we were still a club sport.
Okay.
Um, so there were no scholarships involved. There wasn't that pressure that
Yeah.
maybe you guys saw, but it was, I mean, we were competitive and it was no joke. I mean, we were working out 6 days a week all year long.
Yeah.
Um, but it was early in the infant stages of Boston College crew. I think they're much more established now at this point,
Yeah.
but yeah, growing up, I was always active. Soccer was pretty much my main sport, and I was in a very competitive travel soccer team throughout my whole life. I mean, I think I played with the same, like nine of us played together from when we were 5 till we were 17, like all on the
Hmm.
same team. Some people came and went, but there were a core of us that stuck together, and we were good. And it was super fun. And my father was a coach, one of the coaches, and yeah, I think the value of sports is I don't think you can get that anywhere else. I think it's very important that kids are involved in some kind of sport, right?
Yeah.
They don't have to be great at it, but I think it
Mhm.
does teach amazing lessons across the board. So yeah, I got to college, and kind of just went out for the crew team because it seemed kind of interesting to me, and it was right up my alley because it's as much it's a very team it's a team sport, but it's also very much an individual sport. So
Mhm.
that kind of fit right in with me,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
As a
Yeah.
little bit of a lone wolf and but also a team player. So
Yeah. So, like, how do you think that helped kind of shaped your college experience? Like, did it keep you like on track, having like that, schedule and, hey, we're going to be working out this, and this time? Did that kind of help you?
yeah, I mean it was great for me. I mean it did. It kept me somewhat regimented and on track with a schedule. So yeah, other than that semester, it was great.
Yeah.
I mean, I was enjoying it. I kind of met a lot of friends along the way. To this day, still in good touch with. So yeah, for me, it was a great experience.
Now, okay, so I always say like, or like I interviewed this guy who was a former pro hockey player, and he said sometimes like what those guys when they get away from the game, like when they retire or when they hang it up for the last time, that's when they really start dealing with some issues because now they are not around the guy. I think for guys, it's like that is part of your, and it is for girls too, but I think particularly for guys, like your teammates, that becomes part of your identity. And when you lose like that locker room aspect, it becomes hard for people. Did you experience that at all, or did you kind of find new avenues with which to
I
get some
don't
of that?
I don't think I really experienced that. I mean, even at a young age, I started working in restaurants,
Okay.
and I felt like the kitchen mentality is not that different from like a team mentality,
Yeah. Hmm.
if that makes any sense to you. It's hard work, it can be stressful, but you're all in it together. Like you all kind of have to pull together to make it happen. So I didn't really experience it because for me, I just kind of transitioned from one to the other pretty
Yeah,
quickly.
so you got like your
Yeah.
new team pretty much.
Yeah.
Is it like The Bear? Is it like that? Have you seen the show?
I watched some of it and I kind of had PTSD from it. So
Oh, did
I
you?
couldn't really watch it. Anna watched
I
the whole
loved it.
thing. She loved it. And I watched the first few episodes and I was like, I can't really watch this.
Yeah.
It's
So does
because
that mean it is similar?
it can be. Yeah, it sure
Yeah.
can be.
I mean,
Yeah.
I feel like that was an extreme example. Like just the constant screaming and yelling was a little bit much, but it can get, heated and
Yeah, oh
not
yeah.
a lot of filters and
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's it's pretty realistic. I mean, maybe on the extreme end, but you would experience that for sure.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, yeah. I mean, I can see how that is like a team too. Like you got your guy in charge, like your coach almost, and you got all these people with different roles. And I'm guessing being an athlete might have helped. Did it help you in that environment, like having that in your past?
I may have. It sure helped with my stamina in a kitchen.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, it's brutal doing that for 10 to 12 hours a day. But yeah, I think it probably did, at least with my mentality.
Yeah. Yeah, it seems like that. Well, what I've gotten from other people who did a sport is it just helps in whatever they do later on because, like you said, you're always part of it. You're always going to be part of a team in some aspect. Now, when did you form your team? Like, let's get into you two. When did that exactly happen? Like, how long after the college years for you
I
two?
was only a couple of years out of college when I met John, and we met through a mutual friend, but I was also his beer rep. I was working for a brewery out of Fort Collins, and um, John owned a restaurant at that point, and yeah, we met. We did have a mutual friend or two, maybe, um, but pretty immediately, I at least was like, oh, this guy's, pretty good looking for
Yeah.
a restaurant owner. I can't say that there were many that I had an attraction to, but I was like, maybe he needs a little more attention than I've been giving this
Yeah, there you go.
particular account. So
And like, how long did you guys date for?
we dated a while before we got married,
About 5
5 years.
years, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. And then I know, Anna, you said when you contacted me, like alcohol was like a normal thing, like socially, professional, in that line of work in particular, like that becomes a thing. Was that like at that stage, was it like almost a way that brought you together with each other or with, friends and different people in the area? Was it like a good thing at that point?
Yeah, for sure.
Oh yeah.
I think so. I mean, it's interesting like being in the industry, right? Whether that's the restaurant industry or the beer industry, like it's not your normal 8 to 5. And so it was definitely helpful for us that we had, like I might have a promo or a beer festival or nights and weekends were not unusual for me to have work obligations and obviously for John too. So it was nice to be able to like meet up for brunch or
Yeah.
get a later start to the day or I remember we were in a Monday night bowling league that didn't start till like 10 p.m. you
Yeah.
know it got to the point where I would not dread Mondays because of work. I was dreading Mondays because of bowling that night.
That's
Because you're
great.
just like, I'm
Well,
tired and I want to go to
it
bed.
was a service industry league,
Yeah,
so it was all, there was a lot of drinking there, and that must have been like a 20-week season or
it was the
something. It was
longest
so
ever.
long.
Yeah. Well, yeah, but I'm sure like I heard saw this one guy, and I'm a health teacher, so I don't want to say drinking is good, but there are good aspects of it where it is a social thing. Like it helps bring people together, and people like me who was like really shy. It was helpful for me at times, and it's just when it gets to be the point where it's too much, then it's obviously a problem. But like I could see like, when you're just starting out forming your life, like it can be a great uniter, I guess you could say.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And yeah, I feel the same way. I mean, I pretty much my career has been in beverage alcohol and mostly craft beer, but the last 5 years or so is just kind of general data and so it obviously shifted. I wasn't required to be out
Yeah.
drinking, but you've kind of seen, I've seen this the trends where now non-alc beverages are really, there's so many that are available and the sales are really taking off. And personally, like I think it's a really positive thing that there's a lot of options out there. But I still do, think that there's something to be said if you aren't using it as a crutch or self-medication or kind of misusing it, that it's not a bad thing. Like I'm not
Yeah.
anti-alcohol, even now at this point. But yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. So okay, so you guys get married. So you get
we get married.
married. Okay. And then I think you talked about like, building your dream home. And where was that? How was that process? Like, did that bring you more together during that time, or did that become stressful?
Oh,
I mean, it had its stressful moments for
yeah,
sure, but I
Yeah.
would think overall it, brought us closer together. It was a team effort in finding the place and then remodeling it and our daughter was born right while all that was going on, so
Yeah.
we were in a very, very small
rental.
rental apartment when our daughter
Yeah.
was born for a much longer period of time than we thought because the renovations took, you know, about a year more than expected.
Yeah. All the
Um,
delays. Yeah. I've seen that a lot.
yeah. Well, so we started, ideally, we were going to start construction in the beginning of 2014. Um, and that January 1st was also when recreational marijuana became legal in Denver.
Yeah.
So all of the business licenses go through the same small office that all of the building permits go through in Denver. So that little office was flooded with business
Yeah. I can
license
imagine. Yeah.
and so our little tiny renovation permit was
Got
not
pushed
yeah
out.
Yeah.
was
Right.
not really on the forethought. So
Yeah.
yeah, we just got really delayed. But I
Yeah.
think overall it was yeah, it was a great experience. I mean, I don't think I want to do it again.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind doing it again.
But I'm really happy with the turnout.
But yeah, I think our early years of marriage were like so many people, we're trying to establish our life and our family and manage business challenges and career changes and all of that. But I think for the most part, like we are a really good team.
Yeah.
And
We had a lot of fun though. Those
yeah,
earlier, we
for
had a
sure.
lot of,
Yeah.
there was a lot of
Yeah.
traveling.
Yeah.
It was really fun for sure. Not that it isn't
Eh,
now. It's just
yeah.
different.
That's what I always say to my Katie's always like, oh, you were my wife. She's always like, remember like the good old days. I'm like, Kate, these are the good old days. I keep trying to get her to say, but she's always like, yeah, college. And I'm like, yeah, but these are pretty good too.
Yeah.
So I did want to get back to you talked about your daughter being born. I know you went through IVF, and
Yep.
I think You talk about things that are difficult that you don't hear a whole lot of people talk about. I mean, I see it in women that I've worked with, and seen it with my own wife, the struggles we had at first. Like, that is like a really difficult thing, specifically in terms of like your mental state when you're going through that. Did
Yeah.
you like have a lot of difficulty with that?
Um, yeah, I mean, I think that, for both of us, it was first of all, for me it was like the in between, it was like every month trying to do the mental gymnastics. I'm like, okay, well, if in 9 months we have a baby, like there was always this, you felt like you were in limbo.
Yeah.
And I think it's really hard to live your life. So for many years of just trying, that was kind of the hardest part. And then obviously the disappointment when it wasn't coming to fruition. And so, yeah, I was probably 34, I think, when finally we were like starting to run tests and figure out like what's going on here, because of course my mom's like, our family is so fertile, this is just
Yeah.
and that's not necessarily helpful, but all good intentions. But yeah, but running tests, and I remember my doctor, I was up in Crested Butte, I think, for work, and she called and she said, "Well, it's looking like premature ovarian failure." I remember
Oh,
that.
wow.
And I'm so bad with medical terminology, but I
Yeah.
remember that one because I was like, "Oh, that doesn't sound good." So basically, she referred us to a fertility specialist, and she said, "We're going to treat you like you're 45 instead of, 34 or 35." And so that's when we decided to move forward with IVF. And fortunately, it was successful, and we've got a healthy daughter. But yeah, it was, I mean, you don't think, you don't anticipate that you're going to go through stuff like that, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, just kind of what you said, the limbo part, or as someone who deals with like depression and mental health stuff, like the limbo or the uncertainty part, like
Mhm.
that really gets like, that's why COVID really messed me up like big time, because of all the uncertain, like you didn't know what was happening the next day. And it